Hello, everyone. This is Daily at Healing Heart Reiki, and we're here for another Tuesday. I am so happy to spotlight today Debra. Debra has been doing somatic body work and embodiment work for over 30 years, and she has studied so many different forms of um, other amazing masters and teachers in the world who are working with embodiment and physical body based work. So I'm so happy to have Debra here today because I don't really know exactly what embodiment is in her context. We have so many ways that we approach this word, and I'd love to learn more. So, hi, Debra. It's nice to
Hi,
see you.
Daly. Thank you for having me and taking the time to do this interview.
Yeah, and I know that part of this interview was inspired by the fact that we're coming together with Vicky for a couple of upcoming day events. One just this upcoming Saturday, and we'll be sharing our work there. So I'm really excited about that. But I thought it would be great. Like, I'm still getting to know you. I've been loving our time hanging out together, and I wanted to also share that with some of my community. So, I know that you run Pure Movement and that you do Pilates, but is Pilates all you do? Like, tell us about your.
No, no. So when I opened my business here in Santa Rosa 18 years ago, I had been previously working in Sonoma with other Pilates people, but we were very like holistic and progressive in our approach because we did like the Pilates methodology, and it turns out like Pilates really does focus on kind of the core structure of the spine, so or the muscles around that. So in a sense, if it's taught in a good way, like not with so much rigidity, it gives people a sense of their bodies, like really from the center, because it's all about like, how do you live in your body through the center? And then it's a progression into learning kind of muscles and movement, but it has a lot of breath also with it. And I just as a side note, which I won't go too long, Pilates has gone through every machination imaginable and to a weekend training to a very thorough immersive training. I had the good fortune of really being mentored in some very traditional ways with a deep practice of really embodying it and learning it. It wasn't like wham bam, you're done. It was really slow and integrative, and it took time to really understand how to feel it and accomplish the movement. So when I opened my studio, people knew me through Pilates, but I also was trained in this other system, which we won't get into, called the gyrotonic expansion system. Simply put, it is a more dynamic system that brings spirals into the body. And what's beautiful about that, if you link, like we are built on spirals, we
Yeah.
are put together in a spiral kind of way. So that has a lot more exploration of fluidity and breath, and kind of incorporates Tai Chi, swimming, dance, Kundalini yoga, a lot of different things that feed into that system. I'm not like certified in yoga, but I've been a yogi since I'm 15 years old, and I've had a very, very strong practice for most of my life. We're talking 3 to 6 times a week I practice yoga. So my studio brings those concepts with functional movement. That's also a language word, which has a lot to do with just kind of developmental movement. Like, how do we move through space? How do we connect? Almost like when we were babies and crawled,
Yeah.
we learned all this oppositional movement. And I also have a physical therapy background, but
Wow.
and then an energetic background. So pretty much my studio is an integrative approach to movement. Each person who comes in, I meet with them. We now at this point, instead of just being specifically one thing, I draw from all my tools and create a session for a person to release, connect, get stronger, stretch out,
Yeah.
feel themselves, and get this greater sense of trust in their bodies
Mhm.
and also their psyches and their souls. So it's a whole thing.
That's awesome. I mean, you just said so many things there that were so yummy. I had all of these different reactions, you know? And also as a dancer, like I used to dance, there's just like talking about the movement. I noticed a lot happening in my body. And one thing that was kind of interesting was like there was a moment when almost like thinking about the movement, I also felt myself getting emotional in my body and
Mm.
almost like parts of me almost like this is going to sound weird, but almost like shutting down to the idea of like feeling shy inside of my body or my energy. And is that a common thing that you find with people when you're working with them? Like, do they get emotional as they're doing the work?
Yeah. And part of the reason why that happens is because it's like a coming in, it's a returning to self. And people may experience pain or like a memory or even like this returning to this interior spaces that perhaps have been left alone or abandoned, or it could be the joy of movement. And um my gosh, I haven't been breathing deeply. I've been holding my breath. And so yes, it's a homecoming at times. And I usually don't make a lot of story about what it is. I just try to hold space. In my younger years, I might have been empathing more, and what, not really wanting to make it better, but I was more verbal. These days I just kind of allow and let people kind of drop in and know that they're safe to reconnect, and it's usually a good thing.
Yeah. And I noticed so for a lot of people that I've worked with and a lot of people in this community, they're quite psychic intuitive. And I've noticed even just like a lot of the embodiment work that I do is uh, even just about starting to presence the energy in, not so much physical work in my sessions, but
Mhm.
even in that initial presencing process, I've noticed that a lot of people who are really psychic are often hanging out way up here and they don't want to come back into their bodies because of
Right.
past trauma or and sometimes traumas they
Mhm.
remember, some that they don't. So like is there a good reason for us to come in? Like, what would you say to people who are like, yeah, I don't know that I want embodiment work, even though, right? Like, what is the benefit of coming back home?
To be honest, and this is really through my teachings and maybe my own exploration, um, I have been told and taught that, and in somatic practices, we need the balance of groundedness and upwardness.
Hmm.
And the body here on earth, on this, what we call three-dimensional plane, this earth plane, really benefits us to be grounded and rooted and embodied, because it's like your body is like a target without being rooted.
Yeah,
And so energy can hit you, other people's energy. It's like the wind. Like, how's your roots
yeah,
to hold your stability? How does your home stand up without a floor?
yeah,
um and I definitely know a community of people who prefer the up and out. I think we come in on a kind of soul young level, choosing these things. But I would say to the psychic community, you're not losing your psychic gifts. You're actually balancing them out with knowing how to really hold space and navigate kind of this, I call it like body, earth body, spaceship earth body, like both down and up. And usually, sometimes psychic intuitives are also very empathic. And so, from what I've learned, and I like to teach people, is like knowing sort of not only your embodiment, but your edges, your boundaries.
yeah.
And so that
the body gives us information if we're anxious or we start crying with someone. Not that any of these things are wrong, but it's sensation and information about how we hold ourselves, how we hold the edge and boundary while we're embodied. So it's
Yeah.
not just coming into being embodied, but also knowing kind of the parameters of how far we feel into our personal space, which can be
Yeah.
very small. It could be up to the edges of your skin, and it could be very, very expanded. And it
Mhm.
becomes like a tool. So I think it's a gesture to say, this is a tool to see your physical body as an energetic instrument to
Mhm. I
hold
love
more,
that.
hold more capacity.
Yeah.
And really, are we ever totally neutral? Probably not. But if we have the ability to embody and kind of have like that third eye looking down and up and around without it being kind of hyper vigilant, but just sort of a knowing, a holding of ourselves,
Yeah.
magic happens from there. And I would say, from my own personal experience, one of my biggest intentions when I opened my studio was not to take people's feelings on. I wanted to be
Oh,
able to, I wanted to age and hold space in a really heartfelt, grounded, big way so that I could flourish in my business and not get like a toxic dump and burn out. And
I
I
love
feel it
this.
has served me well.
Yeah,
And the
because that's something that happens to a lot of, I mean, I feel like with Reiki, like if you're doing Reiki energy work and you're kind of doing it in the most classic, basic way possible, you don't take on a lot. But most people start with Reiki and end up combining other modalities. They're psychic, they're intuitive, they're this, they're that. And I've seen that happen with a lot of practitioners. And it's happened to me in the past where you're heartfelt, you love, and the next thing you know, you see your client going through things and you're just, oh, let me hold it all and let me help you navigate, and your personal boundaries kind of start to crack open, and there's like a lot of merging and flooding. And I know I have different skills and techniques for working with that, but I love that this is coming up in this embodiment conversation because I do feel like embodiment is one of the first kind of boundaries for that, like
Mhm,
learning to hold your own personal space. So I love that you're bringing that not just here, but to those edges.
mhm,
Yeah.
yeah, it's and sometimes, and I was listening to a podcast on somebody who is very, very intuitive, psychic, sensory person, and she would describe not wanting to come in.
Right.
And through her own somatic healing, she was learning how to just get down into grounding because there is going to be resistance. It's actually the body has density. There's a weight to it. There's a much more like lighter quality when you go up and out. So yes, you will feel like it's all I know originally when I started grounding, I would be like, oh my God, this is like making my skin crawl. I felt like
Yeah.
my tempo and
Like
my
your body's thick.
frequency.
You're like,
Well, I wanted to move faster. I tend to
oh,
move faster, not necessarily like at a hummingbird's speed, but I'm quick and I like to move quickly. And one of my teachers used to say, in certain Native American traditions, they would maybe coming of age ceremony, they would bury the person coming of age into the earth and sit with them. And then they would teach them and how to feel that weight on them
mm,
as they drop down like a blanketing, and to feel like it was a friend, not an enemy,
oh,
but something that
that's
holds
beautiful.
us. And the earth holds us. See, the earth, it's depending on, I hope to language this, that the earth, the mother, is an energetic form of holding us. Because we as humans here need to know our places here and we are loved. And the earth heart energy is about grounded love.
Oh, yeah, I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
for years I danced, and I think in many ways when I was younger, the dancing was a way to kind of escape the other experiences I was having in my life. Like I would disappear into my body and into that sort of ecstatic body spirit connection. And then later, when I first started to learn about embodiment work or somatic work, even like
Hmm.
I thought, I don't need that. I've been a dancer. And then I started to do some work, and it was like wild. I was so angry as I started to come into my body. I
Mm.
noticed all of this old anger and rage about things in the past that I had successfully dodged and just not dealt with and not thought about because I was lost in the ecstasy of this other kind of movement. And so it like really alerted me to the fact that there's ways we can be in our body and yet not be fully seated in our body, no matter how sensory or sensual or active we appear to be. So I don't know, like, when you work with people, I know you work with everyday people, energy healer people, all kinds of people. When you work with people, do they usually come to you because they have emotional things going on or physical things, or are they just curious about embodiment work? Or like, who should be maybe like, come see me? Like, who is the person that might benefit most?
Well, I think it's hard sometimes to always know what you're going to get with me, but I would say the majority of people are coming to move and kind of unpack some injuries that have resulted through their life. But they see in my website all these other things that I do, and they realize it's out of the box.
Yeah,
So it may be one thing is happening that we're going to focus on, but then
like
depending
back
on the
pain or a
depending on the
shoulder.
receptivity, I would say, well, let me do a little manual therapy here, or maybe today we need to do some table work. And so sometimes I'm like, let's do some grounding. I'll just sit and do meditation or chanting to use vibration to clear the field. So yeah, I would say primarily people come with a movement issue, and occasionally they're coming in just to do table work, and then we're unpacking sort of the emotional, energetic, perhaps trauma that was blocking that particular injury.
That's really cool. And I feel like I've seen this with a lot of other master energy healers, of which I consider you to be, like where you're not just working with one modality. It's kind of like, okay, you've cultivated this toolkit over 30, 40 years, and then the person is coming in and you're kind of going, I'm going to meet them from heart to heart, heart to soul, and we'll start with the concern and then let it flow and let them come into themselves. That's
Yeah.
like the best kind of work. It really is.
Thank you. It feels good. I feel like I'm in alignment with my service and my calling, and I truly enjoy it. It's not just enjoy it. I love it, and I am a humanist. I really like people, and um, I do my best to just meet people where they are, but also lead a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's what they're paying me, and I always say to people, here's my ideas, you can accept or reject. Because I really do want people to have their own inner knowing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is so interesting. People come to me, and because maybe they're not embodied, they'll say, what do you think, Deborah? What do you think? And I'll just sit there and I'll say, what do you think? What do you feel?
Yeah.
And sometimes they really don't know. And that's okay, because there's been this dissociation.
Yeah.
So we try.
Yeah.
I try to let people find their own embodiment and medicine and trust, because I'm not a fixer. And my idea of healing, being a healer or a somatic practitioner, is to hold space. to guide and let people find their wisdom. And
Yeah.
when people like there's very few people I like to go to who can meet me and my energy, but when they do, I feel so held and overjoyed, and
Best feeling.
the best feeling. And it's rare. And I always say this too, like when people call me up and they're like, okay, I really want to get in with you, I said, wait, come in, have a session, let's see if we're a match, because I've done this for a long time. Not everyone is a match,
Right.
and I respect that that possibility.
Yeah. I love that. So
Yeah.
anybody who's kind of curious about you, I know we're doing our upcoming retreat, and that's going to be a great place to meet with you, kind of taste your work. I think the retreat is a sliding scale of $35 to $55, which is just like a fantastic, you know, a fantastic deal to kind of come in and meet with energy healers and really get a toolkit of this kind of work. So will you be teaching an exercise for people at that retreat, or
I hope
um,
to do two exercises.
okay,
One on a deep body scan of clearing and languaging into the rooting, and then flushing out things that are in the body. And I really want to do an exercise with boundaries and what that feels like with, and we'll do that in a dyad. I want to kind of create it where people can work with each other and just have an experience of relating while they're holding the previous exercise of embodiment. So it's learning, I want to teach people how you stay in yourself. It's like having this multiple
yeah,
attention, like how much can we pay attention to ourselves and another, because it changes.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's where we really lose a little bit of the boundary, because when we start relating to another human, it's more horizontal.
right.
That's a back and forth. The grounding is more of a vertical line, and that's really like holding the body in this vertical axis. But when we can do both, things start to spin and expand.
I love that. Ooh, that also brought up all of these other thoughts and questions. And I know this is how, like, even when we've gathered off screen, it's just become this long, kind of really rich conversation. So
Mhm.
I think we'll end here. I'm so thankful that you were able to spend this time with us today. And I'm absolutely looking forward to seeing you a little bit later. And
Yeah, and I want to. It's such a pleasure to know you and getting to know you. I mean, your name has been in this county forever, and it's just an honor. And I'm excited to experience your gifts and Vicky's gifts. And I just want to say to anyone who's potentially thinking of coming to this, it's just going to be like a lovely afternoon with these three incredible women who are masterful in their own work. And I think, I feel that something big is building and how we could expand this to the community.
thank you
So
so much.
looking forward.
Thank you. Well, we'll talk to you again very soon.
Okay, Daly, see you soon. Thank you.